What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to Leafs Digest. News breaks a couple of hours ago. I first saw it reported by Chris Johnson, so give full credit to him. He's also the one I found out the information from yesterday about Nick Ritchie being put on waivers. Today, Nick Ritchie has cleared waivers, which means that none of the other 31 teams in the NHL decided to pick him up, claim him as their own, and essentially, as far as this goes, I think the biggest interpretation we can take away from this is people are looking at he's done all year this year, looking at that salary and just staying the hell away from it. A lot of teams around the league are looking at different situations where they are pressed up against the cap themselves. They don't have room to bring in a guy like that, or they don't see that guy being a fit for their team. They don't see him being an improvement on what they could already use. So that's completely understandable there. Now, it is a little bit concerning that a guy like that, who we paid $2.5 million to for the next two seasons, or this season and next year, was not wanted by any other team across the NHL. Perhaps it's something where it was a Galchenyuk type situation where we waited for him to clear waivers, then we traded for him like we did last year, and maybe some other team is going to be looking to trade for him now that he is into the Marlies. Who knows where that'll go from there, but as it stands right now, nobody else in the NHL wanted this guy. No one wanted to pick him up and take him on their own teams. Now, what this means for the Toronto Maple Leafs, let's break that down. The Leafs MLSE will still be paying Nick Ritchie $2.5 million per year. That does not change. What it does mean is that he goes and he can play with the Marlies, and he can now be assigned to the taxi squad. So when he goes to the taxi squad, yes, he will still count against the Toronto Maple Leafs salary cap when he plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Being on that taxi squad, playing for the Leafs, he will count against the cap. Where the help comes from is that when you get a guy like Kasha back into the lineup, or you get guys off of your COVID protocol list, Nick Ritchie can then be sent back down to the Marlies, come off of the cap, not be having to worry about there, and he can go play for the Marlies without having to clear up and down and have the risk of other teams come and get him. As it was reported by Terry Koshin, which we saw yesterday, this team does still want him. The Leafs still want him. Dubas and Shanahan still see something there. They see a potential. They see an opportunity. They see somebody who has not tapped into what they believe they can reach their ceiling as. So when a guy like Nick Ritchie gets brought or clears waivers and he is eligible to be put onto your taxi squad, Dubas and Shanahan could not be more happy. You have to remember that MLSE is an organization with boatloads of money. To be paying a guy $2.5 million and come off of your cap, kind of to be sitting in the Marlies like that, they will take that every single day of the week if it means he can go on the taxi squad and be there as an emergency situation. If he can be a guy who can go and sit there and play when guys go out with COVID, you have an extra, essentially, NHL player who has played in NHL games this year and they think can bring a lot more to the table than what he's currently doing. If he can just sit there, you pay him $2.5 million to play for the Marlies. In the meantime, they will take that every single day of the week. That is a swap. That is a trade-off that will happily be accepted by MLSE if it means getting closer and closer to winning a Stanley Cup. Now, where this also can come into play is being able to move that guy later on. If he can go to the Marlies and he can start lighting it up there, or he gets into the taxi squad and somehow, some way, he becomes hungrier to get back onto this team and he starts to transform into the player they were hoping he would be all along, maybe some other team wants to take a flyer on him. Maybe some other team wants to trade for him and take that money completely off of your books. When he's on the taxi squad, he's hitting against the salary cap, which does hurt a little bit. But if he's going in there, it's obviously because guys are out and you need him to hop into the lineup. So it's kind of helpful. But when that time comes, you move away. If another team looks at him and goes, man, that guy could make an impact here, or that's the piece we're missing here, that's when it could become beneficial because you get to showcase this guy at essentially no harm to you and your team. Him clearing waivers was one of the best things that could happen for this team at this point in time. Just because by going to the Marlies, he can gain some confidence. He can go to the taxi squad and get called up in emergency situations, or if there's guys missing, which is beautiful for this team. He can hop in when guys go on protocol, which hopefully you don't have happening much more considering COVID essentially has gone through this entire team at this point. But in the event that it does, he can get in there, he can get in some games, and he can showcase some stuff. Now, the other bonus, which I mentioned before, is if this guy starts performing, if he starts playing up to expectations, you're looking at a situation where he could just play himself back into the lineup. You could bring him back in. You don't even have to worry about it. Like, you continue to push on like this. And I'm sure the Leafs are the type of organization that would be happy to have him stay with the Marlies or on this taxi squad and just continue to roll out games for as long as guys are out. Or if you get to a point where you need to trade a guy, move a guy away to free up some money and have Nick Ritchie become a regular again, you can do that. So I don't think we'll see any type of controversy surrounding that. I think this team would be very, very happy if they could bring him up and down as need be, because that's kind of the situation you're put in. These taxi squads, Brandon Pridham, Kyle Dubas, they're going to find a way to exploit that and use it to their benefit. And now, for anybody who gets mad about that or mad about that situation, just remember it's in the rules. It is allowed to happen. You are not cheating the system. You are playing by the rules that are allowed. And if this is something they wanted to avoid, this is something they didn't want, the first thing the NHL should have looked at is the Nikita Kucherov situation from last year, where he doesn't play the entire year, essentially, just comes into playoffs and drops right in. He's magically good to go, and he is dominant. Like, he is just as he was Nikita Kucherov again. So you want to talk about cap circumvention and all that kind of stuff. It's in the rules. It's allowed. At no point was I ever upset with what the Lightning were doing with Nikita Kucherov, because it's allowed. It's the NHL has it in their rules that you can do that type of thing. And if you are a team, you are a GM, or you are a fan of a team looking at your GM not using this to the best of their abilities, and you're in a tight cap situation, you have injuries, you have excess players, and they're not using this to their advantage, you as a fan should be mad at your own team, not the other teams who are using this to help them, because this is, yes, put in place for COVID and all that kind of stuff, and LTIR is for injuries and helping teams out of those situations. But if you have the ability to use that to your advantage, you should be mad at your own team for not taking advantage of it, not using it to their benefit, not using it to help their team have some type of competitive advantage or be able to acquire players or build out rosters that benefit from that type of situation. So I think this is where you have to look at it and go, okay, I get it why it seems cheating, but this is allowed and we should take the opportunity. And that's kind of what's happening here with Nick Ritchie. He clears waivers, which, I mean, if anyone wanted him, if anyone else wanted this guy, they would have had that opportunity to do so. They could have picked him up while he was in the waiver process. They didn't. Now the Leafs have the opportunity to take advantage of this and call that guy back up. And I mean, you want to look at different situations where the Leafs have sent guys down, like Travis Boyd picked up, Jamie Vesey last year picked up. These guys got claimed off waivers. They've had guys claimed off waivers before, even at the beginning of this season. Brooks, Amadio, these guys were all claimed off of waivers. It happens. You lose guys. This is a situation where you don't. Now you take it to your advantage. You might as well if you're Kyle Dubas and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll see what happens moving forward. We'll see if this piece needs to be used. But Leafs fans, as of right now, as it stands, Nick Ritchie clears waivers. He is with the Toronto Marlies. He is eligible to be brought up to the taxi squad. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But until then, till we find out more information, Leafs fans, keep believing.